Life is one of the first and only original blockbuster films coming out this year. And to be honest, it's not that original. So Life is directed by Daniel Espinosa, and it stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Ryan Reynolds, Rebecca Ferguson, and Hiroyuki Sanada, among a couple of other actors who are all very talented. And it's essentially about these couple of astronauts and scientists who are up in a space station. They receive a sample of dirt from Mars, and from that sample of dirt they find life beyond Earth. And as this life, as it's called Calvin in the film, essentially starts growing, it evolves and starts trying to kill all the members of this crew. And a lot of people, even before the film had come out, had been drawing comparisons to Alien, saying it's a mindless Alien ripoff. It has no originality. Even though this is one of the original films, not a sequel, not a spin-off, not a reboot or anything. It's an original film that is coming out this year. It's one of the only original films coming out this year, and so people have been saying it's unoriginal, and a lot of people have been sort of bashing it for being an Alien ripoff. And I feel like every science fiction survival horror film draws comparisons to Alien, because there are only so many ways you can make a film like this. And although the film does draw inspiration from Alien every now and then, it's pretty good and it's pretty original, and it does a pretty decent job of setting itself apart from other films in its genre. And one of the ways that it does this is that, unlike most films in its genre, it doesn't really have a main character. There isn't really a character in this film where you see them and you're like, I know this is the main character, that's the one I want to root for, that's the one who's going to survive at the end. Unlike Alien, which had Sigourney Weaver as the main character, as the lead, and you kind of know she's going to survive. This film doesn't really have a main character, which makes the film a lot more unpredictable, and so you don't really know who's going to die, who's going to survive, which obviously makes for more surprising deaths. Also, pretty much every single character in this film is really well developed and fleshed out. And I know some people will be like, why are you wasting all this time setting up these characters if you're going to kill them in the end anyway? But the fact that all these characters are so well fleshed out and developed makes their eventual death more suspenseful, more impactful, and just more dramatic, and I actually like that. Now let's talk about the performances. Ryan Reynolds is good as usual. He basically plays Ryan Reynolds, which, I mean, that's still good. Rebecca Ferguson is very good. Hiroyuki Sanada, who plays a pretty big character in this film. He's one of my favorite Japanese actors. He's very good in the film. And Jake Gyllenhaal, this is interesting because normally Jake Gyllenhaal would be my favorite character in the film. He always gives great performances, but his character in this film is quite interesting because he's not exactly what you would describe as likable. He's this guy who's kind of like antisocial, and he holds the record for the longest amount of consecutive days in space, and he kind of doesn't want to be around people, and so that doesn't really make him likable. Jake Gyllenhaal does make the character very interesting, but he's definitely not my favorite part of the film. My favorite part of the film is probably how intense and suspenseful this film is. The film constantly had me on edge, and I was never really given a chance to sort of have a break from the tension. It was very energetic. And also the technical aspects of the film are very good. The score is very good. It's surprisingly very good. It never sort of gets in the way of the film and never overpowers the film, but it does a good job to sort of add intensity to some scenes. Also, the cinematography is pretty great. This film is pretty visually brilliant. In fact, the first 5 or so minutes of the film is done in one continuous take, which I really admire. I'm a big fan of long takes, and that was really well done. And another good thing about this film is that the characters in this film, when you have survival horror films, whether it's, in the horror genre or the sci-fi genre or whatever, the characters are purposefully dumb. They do such dumb things, and that's one of the things that I hate so much about Prometheus. It's some of the scientists in that film are so dumb, and they just do such dumb stuff. In this film, they actually make surprisingly wise decisions when it comes to their survival. They don't just randomly do dumb stuff and get up and then they start shouting for help even though they know the alien is about to come and kill them. The scientists in this film, the characters in this film, are surprisingly smart. I mean, there are obviously moments in the film where don't do that, stop being an idiot, but still I think that this film does a better job than some films, other films of its genre, of making the characters feel more believable and logical. Where the film falters for me is, I think, the first act and a half is very good. The second act and the third act feel like the film just kind of blows its load and just turns into the big Hollywood blockbuster that we were expecting. But from a film called Life, I was expecting it to sort of delve deeper into the idea of human evolution and sort of how we live and how we sort of work as a species, and how, you know, whether or not we are the apex predator or whatever, like something like that, something a little bit more philosophical, something that sort of asks big questions. But pretty much after the first act, which is very good, it just turns into an action horror sci-fi film, typical Hollywood, and I was kind of disappointed, to be honest. I mean, it isn't bad, but I just expected more from it. Also, you have the whole comparison to Alien thing. This film is obviously not as good as Alien, but on the whole, Life, for me, is a surprisingly enjoyable film with some good tension, good characters, some pretty new and original things. Although it does obviously draw a lot of inspiration from Alien, it still remains pretty original and sort of self-contained, and it does a good job of creating this sense of claustrophobia and, you know, good technical aspects, although it is bogged down by that typical Hollywood third act. I would recommend you guys see this film. It is not as bad as people have been saying it is, and I'm going to give Life a B+. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Please stay tuned for my Ghost in the Shell review coming out in the next few days. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching. Thank you.